sanctities. Joining me now is Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, President of Washington Strategy Group, and a Democratic strategist at Democracy Partners. Joel, it's always so good to have you on the show. You know, when this happened yesterday, of course, one of the things that immediately came to mind was what's going to happen to the attempts to normalize relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel. What are your immediate thoughts, considering the fact that Saudi Arabia came out with that statement that I just read to our viewers?
Yeah, Katie, it's great to be with you. Thank you for covering this. Look, the Saudi-Israeli normalization talk, there was always a lot of skepticism in Washington about how far they would go and what they would really mean for the region. But the core issue that was seeming to create friction in terms of their advancement was the question of the Palestinians and what to do. And Saudi Arabia was calling for, and even MBS leader, Saudi Arabia, in some interviews was calling for better living standards, better life for the Palestinians, progress towards peace. So without a doubt, now the pressure on Saudi Arabia will be extreme to stand by those words. And I think that for the United States, it does put us in a bit of a diplomatic pause on this. But there is a real need to continue to advance any direction of peacemaking that is possible. And so I think we're going to see the Saudi negotiations be in this hiatus, so to speak. But without a doubt, there's going to be a desire to try to make sure that momentum for peacemaking doesn't just stop because of this terrorist attack.
You know, there's been some hypotheses out there that the timing of this particular attack by Hamas was primarily aimed at disrupting those negotiations between Israel and Saudi Arabia. This idea that Hamas feels, Iran-backed especially, Hamas feels like it's being left out of the mix. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, you know, Katie, I want to be very clear here. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Hamas exists to disrupt. Look at the depravity that we've just been seeing over the last day and a half. It's stealing young people, children, elderly from old age homes and taking them, parading them through the streets of Gaza. This is Hamas. Now, Hamas is not new to the game. Hamas did this in the mid-90s. Hamas blew up buses in Tel Aviv, killing dozens, scores of Israelis in the midst of a peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. That was when Shimon Peres was the prime minister, a very pro-peace leader. Hamas killed multiple scores of Palestinians, kicked out the Palestinian Authority from Gaza only a year or so into Gaza being self-governing in 2006. So without a doubt, Hamas is a spoiler. And these actions cannot be disconnected from that broader strategic question. Of course, at the end of the day, this is a direct Hamas-Israel fight. And so they may have those strategic concerns or thoughts and what they want to do to spoil. But what they really do want to spoil is any potential for any rapprochement, any peace, any future of coexistence between Israelis and Palestinians.
So there's some red flags, Joel, that I'm seeing here with Iran and Hamas on the south, Iran-backed Hezbollah on the north, the fact that we're seeing military activity and frankly, terrorist activity coming from both ends of Israel. What's your thought about the fact that we do have a third-party actor like Iran who's driving a lot of what's happening here right now?
Well, this is how Iran behaves in the region. Without a doubt, Iran has been a supporter of regional aggression in multiple countries, in Yemen, in Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and supporting Hezbollah now for decades. And I think that Hezbollah, they would be very wise to not get fully invested in an attack against Israel. Israel, clearly their security services were asleep at the switch in southern Israel, and it's devastating to see what occurred. They're not asleep anymore. And Iran, you know, this is a country that we have been trying desperately to figure out how to corral. I'm a big and have been a big supporter of the nuclear agreement that President Obama negotiated because it prevented Iran from getting further along towards a nuclear weapon. Well, President Trump broke out of that. Iran is now in a closer position. We have got to find ways to corral it. And part of that as well is ensuring that they don't get the world's worst weapons. But they have been yanking the chains of multiple terrorist organizations for a number of years, devastating civilian populations across the Middle East. But for Hezbollah, if it were to get involved, it would be very damaging and devastating to the Lebanese people, as well, of course, to Hezbollah and, of course, to northern Israel, where civilians would likely be in direct harm's way.
Joel, I got about 30 seconds left with you very quickly. If the United States were to intervene, which it sounds like the United States has pledged support to its ally, Israel, how would that impact, do you think, any type of the normalization efforts between Israel and Saudi Arabia?
I think that right now it's going to be on a pause and it's going to go quiet. But no one can walk away at this stage. They cannot walk away. But if Israel goes into a direction that we begin to see images that cause serious activity in the street in Saudi, it will put extreme pressure on Saudi Arabia to walk away. So there's a lot of balancing going on right now. Israel has a need to defend itself and to be aggressive with Hamas, but in a direction that cannot overwhelm the system and prevent Saudi Arabia from continuing to find ways to engage with the Israelis and normalize this region, which is in such desperate need of peace and normalization.
Joel Rubin, as always, thanks for joining us and sharing your insight. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Katie.